So I'm going to start off with nouns. Now, concrete nouns are our names for physical objects, tangible objects, things you can get your hands on and touch, like a tree, like hair, like a monkey. I kind of regret putting that in there because nobody should be touching monkeys. And then your abstract nouns are your names for ideas and concepts, things that we can't kind of touch but exist in our minds as feelings and things like that. So happiness, love, freedom, all that kind of stuff, those would be abstract nouns. Proper nouns are our names for people, places, formalized things, so businesses, so Sarah, Harrow and Tesco. And in terms of analysis, what you're basically looking at is you won't often analyze the fact that you've got a concrete noun and the fact that it's something that you can touch. But you might analyze a pattern if there's lots of concrete nouns in a text, if you've got what we call a lexical field of concrete nouns. And again, if you're not sure what that is, check out my video on how to analyze word choice, because I go over semantic field and lexical field in that as well. You'll also be able to analyze patterns between the different kinds of nouns. So for example, does a text have a lot of concrete nouns and then later a lot of abstract nouns? And so you can kind of see that change between them. With proper nouns, that's more something perhaps you would look at with non-fiction rather than fiction. So with proper nouns, if a text is using a lot of proper nouns, is it like a factual text and the proper nouns are part of how the factual text is achieving its purpose of informing and showing that it's, a reliable source, something like that. But essentially, the question behind all of this is why? Why are they using all of these concrete nouns? Why are they using abstract nouns? Why are they using proper nouns? And the answer to that question is going to vary from text to text. Next, we've got verbs. So verbs are much meatier, I find, than nouns. Students will often choose to zoom in on verbs and analyze those. And we've got three different kinds: dynamic verbs, stative verbs, and modal verbs. Dynamic verbs describe, well, no, they don't describe, they are your physical actions, things that you do, whether that be as a human with your body or an animal or things that an object does. So running, speaking, grabbing, rolling, crushing, shaking, anything like that. Stative verbs are mental processes and states of being. So like you can think of it as mental and spiritual, to be, to exist, to think, to feel, to know. All of that would be your stative verbs. And then your modal verbs, there's quite a set list of these in the English language. It's quite a long list, which is why I haven't put them all here, but it's the words in the English language that convey possibility: will, can, could, should, might, all that kind of stuff. So in terms of what you're able to analyze, similar to what I said with the nouns, it's about those patterns. Do they have a lexical field of dynamic verbs? Do they have a lexical field of stative verbs? Do they start off using mainly stative and then shift to using mainly dynamic? Why do they do that? What's the significance of that shift? If you're going to be zooming in on one individual dynamic verb, what's the significance of describing with a physical action rather than, a stative verb and just describing something with a mental process? With the modal verbs, why indicate that level of possibility? Why the more certain modal verb of will, or the more kind of like maybe, maybe not of a modal verb like might? Why go for that particular modal verb? Why indicate that level of possibility? Adjectives, you've got quite a few different adjectives. And again, these tend to be really meaty ones that students will talk about a lot. Firstly, you've got laudatory adjectives, which just means that they are positive. They have positive connotations behind them. Both laudatory and pejorative can be clumped together as being known as evaluative adjectives. That means they're adjectives with an implicit opinion within them. If you're calling something beautiful, there is a positive opinion in that. So laudatory adjectives are your positive opinions: beautiful, delicate, intelligent. Pejorative adjectives are your negative opinions: rotten, vile, cruel. Now, the examples I've given you there very clearly sit in one category or another. But actually, the reality is that for a lot of adjectives, whether it's pejorative or laudatory, will depend on how it is used in the sentence, okay? So, for example, we might perceive, I don't know, I'm not even going to think of a word now, being tenacious tenacious as a positive, as a laudatory adjective, but it could also be used in a pejorative way in certain, stories, in certain contexts. So you want to pay close attention to the context of how a word is being used to make sure that you're getting that, is it laudatory or is it pejorative, correct. Factual adjectives are adjectives where there is no evaluation, there's no opinion behind it. It's just a kind of plain adjective of what something looks like. Green, round, small. Again though, many adjectives that can be factual could also be laudatory or pejorative depending on the context that they're used. It's possible, for example, to describe something as being tall and just give that in a factual way. You're just providing the information it's tall. It is also possible to use the word tall in a laudatory way. You think it's a good thing that something is tall. And it is also possible to use tall in a pejorative way. You think it's possible, you think that something is tall and that's a bad thing. So again, whether an adjective is laudatory, pejorative, and sometimes factual comes down to the context of how it's being used. Is there an opinion being held behind it? And what you'll therefore analyze is that opinion. Why are they presenting something positively? Why are they presenting something negatively? Why are they presenting something neutrally? The last two adjectives we've got are comparative adjectives and superlative adjectives. So comparative adjectives, the clue is in the name, you're comparing something to something else. So it's our classic of more adjective or adjective ending er, faster, more popular, smarter. You've then also got your superlatives, which are like your extremes of being the best, but also being the worst. So best, worst, most explosive, lumpiest, scariest, most fun, etc. With those, what you're able to explore is why describe it in those terms? Why focus on comparing one to the other? Again, often this will be useful when you're trying to analyze non-fiction. If they're comparing something to something else, why? What point are they trying to make? Is it part of them trying to persuade? Is it part of them trying to help their audience understand something by comparing to something they know? Is with the superlatives, again, are they trying to explain? Are they trying to persuade by, saying this is the most beautiful place in the world or whatever? So comparative and superlative, you'll find you're able to analyze more often with non-fiction, but both fiction and non-fiction, laudatory, pejorative, factual, you'll be able to analyze all three of those. Our next round of word class I want to talk about are your pronouns. There's two kinds of pronouns that you'll often be able to analyze in English. Your personal pronouns, words like I, him, they, me, we, all that good stuff. Also your possessive pronouns that indicate ownership of something. His house, that is mine, our car, that kind of thing. What you're often able to analyze. Can you hear the ice cream man again? I swear, all my videos of the summer months are going to have the sound of a bleeding ice cream van. One of my videos, I'm just going to start it with me eating a whippy ice cream. I'm finally going to actually get out to that ice cream van and get myself an ice cream. Anyway, back to pronouns. What you're often able to analyze is the use of possessive pronoun in terms of what are they taking ownership of and why are they taking ownership of that thing? Is it a good thing they're taking ownership of it? Is it a bad thing they're taking ownership of it? With the personal pronouns, what you'll often be able to analyze is particularly if they're using I a lot, the focus being on them, or if they're using personal pronouns like we, that sense of a collective, that sense of multiple people being involved, that kind of thing. Last one, the others. There are a few other kinds of a word class that when students know these ones, they do often do some great analysis of them, but these aren't super common ones that you'll find yourself analyzing. I would definitely say if you know the different kinds of verbs and adjectives, they are your best. Next would be the nouns and the pronouns, and then these are kind of towards the bottom where if you know these ones, it's great to have in your toolkit. So first of all, we've got adverbs. A lot of students misunderstand adverbs. They don't really know what an adverb is in the kind of true sense of the word. And by that, I mean a lot of students think adverbs describe verbs and they end ly. And that's only half the truth. Yes, adverbs can often end in ly, but they don't have to. As you can see in my example here, now and here can be adverbs because an adverb can describe a verb and it can describe an adjective. So if you say, I'm leaving the house now, the word now is describing when you are leaving the house, and therefore it's an adverb. Similarly, if you say, I am here, here is describing the state of being, the I am, and therefore it's an adverb. So you really want to pay attention when you're trying to spot adverbs. Don't use the does it end in ly trick. Really ask yourself about the function that the word is serving in the sentence, okay? Is that word describing a verb or an adjective? If it is, it's an adverb. And what you're going to be able to analyze will vary massively because there's so many different kinds of adverb, but you'll be able to do an analysis of that particular word choice. So if you've got an adverb like somebody does something rarely, why use the word rarely? If you've got somebody using the word now, why now? So, you might get, for example, a non-fiction text that says donate now. Why now? How does that help them with achieving their goal of trying to persuade you, that kind of thing? Prepositions indicate like where something is in relation to something else. You can think of it as kind of like identifying the location of something. So under, above, inside, between, to, from, that kind of thing, after, that kind of thing as well. So with prepositions, again, this is one you won't do lots and lots of times, but sometimes you might decide, oh, okay, yeah, I really want to analyze the choice of that particular word because I think it's effective. And if that word is identifying the location, it's a preposition. You might often find you can analyze if on a deeper level the preposition is indicating something about like perhaps the relationship between two things or the power dynamic or something like that. If somebody is between something and something, what does that say about power dynamics relationships? If somebody is under something, power relationships, all that kind of stuff. Conjunctions. So you've got two kinds of conjunctions in the English language. You've got coordinating conjunctions and you have got subordinating conjunctions. You don't need to know that for the purposes of analysis. You more need to know that for the purposes of how to structure a sentence grammatically accurately in the English language. For the purposes of here, though, you just need to understand that conjunctions are the words that you'll use to link your sentences together. But, because, yet, so, and all that good stuff. Again, you won't often find you're analysing conjunctions, but I find that some of them, like the word but, can be analysed sometimes in the sense of, but indicates something's changed. So but might often be involved with a volta of a poem, and you can analyse how that conjunction of but creates that volta in the poem. Or the word yet indicating a sense of hesitancy or whatever it is. Again, it's going to vary massively depending on the text that you're having a look at. But at least if you know what conjunctions are, you can kind of keep your eyes peeled for if you think any conjunctions are being used for effect. That's an important thing to stress with conjunctions. We really need them just to make our sentences grammatically accurate. That's true of all the word classes, in fact, that I've looked at today. They'll all be necessary at various points to be grammatically accurate in writing in the English language. That doesn't always mean they're being used for effect, though. And you are only interested in analysing things for effect. You're not interested in analysing things because that's what the grammar needed to be for the sentence to make sense. Our next one is a determiner. Now, possessive pronouns are technically also determiners because determiners are basically the word that determines kind of what a noun is, who does it belong to, where is it, that kind of thing. So under that also comes articles, a, the, this, those. Now, the reason that you might sometimes analyze determiners is because of the very slight distinctions in the meaning between them. So, for example, saying something like those people, it's creating a real sense of like distance and detachment, and you'll be able to analyze why create that distance, why create that detachment. The use of like a versus the. A is very general, a cat. Whereas if you're using the, you're referring to one specifically, the cat. So So again, you might sometimes find that there's like an effect going on, and you can look at, oh, they could have used a there, but they chose to use the. Why did they choose to use the over a? So it's like, why have they chosen to determine the noun under that word type? This, those, the, a. And the last word class that I want to talk about is a quantifier. Now, a quantifier indicates amount, some, all, every, words like that, most, all that kind of stuff. So again, varies from text to text, but you will sometimes find that quantifier, again, especially in non-fiction, but it can be in fiction too, they will use the quantifier effectively. Every person in the world needs to donate now, you know? They will use the amount as a way of indicating the scale of something or the importance of something, or to underplay something, you know, some people might think, that kind of stuff. So sometimes you might find that you're able to analyze the quantifier of in a sentence as well.